Hari Om, and welcome to Living Ramayana, the podcast where we delve deep into the Ramayana and its significance to our daily life. Today, we're joined in the studio by one of our study group facilitators, Hiral. And before we get into the conversation on today's topic with her, we'll jump back into the story. Sri Ram has been given the news of his exile by Kaikeyi. His father, King Dasharath, is devastated, and his mother is also completely taken unawares by this news. And what we saw last time is that the way that Rama communicates how he's going, it lessens the blow. It lessens that surprise sort of, and its unpleasantness to a small degree. She's obviously still extremely upset and thrown off by this whole thing happening. She was thinking that he would be coronated that same day. So Sri Rama's mother, Kausalya, has received the news. And the next person to hear is Lakshman. And out of all the four brothers, as we've seen, the relationship between the four of them is that they all love each other and respect each other a lot. But Lakshman is particularly attached to Sri Ram and just doesn't want to leave his side. And Shatrugna is in the same way in service to Bharata. And Lakshman has this reputation for being a bit of a loose cannon, a hothead. So when he gets this news, he reacts in a very Lakshman way. And that is, he first basically says that he implies, okay, he's not explicitly saying this, either in the Valmiki Ramayana or in the Tulsi Ramayana. But essentially, he's like, the king has gotten really old. I don't think he really knows what's going on. Just ignore him. You don't need to pay attention to anything our father has said, because he's basically just like, he's lost his intelligence. He's too old now. Just ignore him. And as for Kaikeyi, he has a lot of things to say about her as well. He is very sort of disparaging of her character and everything that she has done. So when he gets this news that Sri Rama is going into exile, he says, just ignore them. Now, when he hears this, when Sri Rama hears this, there's a really interesting thing that is conveyed through their dialogue in the Valmiki Ramayana. And there, Ram says that people in life have one of three priorities in general. Either their priority in life is what we would call dharma, right? Or righteousness, being dedicated to doing the right thing. Or second, their priority is prosperity. Or third, their priority is pleasure. He says for those who seek pleasure, they'll get what they're seeking in the long term, but their life may not amount to anything, right? Because if somebody is just seeking pleasure from experience to experience, day to day in their life, then at the end of their life, when that person looks back and thinks, what have I done? Or someone else looks at their life and thinks, what has this person achieved? What have they contributed? They don't really have much to show for their life because it's been spent in the pursuit of pleasure. He says for the person who's looking for prosperity, if that's the priority, then that person may, again, gain prosperity, right? They may become super wealthy. They may become very well known also. But often we pursue prosperity at the cost of everything else. And so that person may be really wealthy, but could be really lonely, right? And could be suffering from ill health, etc. And so even that person for whom prosperity is their main goal in life, they might get what they seek, but they're also losing out on so much, right? Just like the first person. So he says, the thing that is clear for me is that in my life, my priority is neither pleasure nor prosperity. My priority is righteousness. It is to do the right thing. And here, the right thing for me to do is to follow the instruction that my father has given me. Even if it's come through KK, that's fine. But the actual instruction has come from my father. And therefore, I will go. Lakshman, once again, he listens, because anytime Rama is speaking, Lakshman will listen. So he listens and he's like, I still don't think you should go. You know what? I will fight everyone. I will fight Dashrath. I will fight Bharat. I will take this whole army. I will stand up to anyone who has a single thing to say about you staying here, not going to exile. But you don't need to go. Why are you listening to this outrageous idea of going and living in the forest for 14 years? And remember, the instruction is not just that he can't enter any city for 14 years. It's that he has to live as an ascetic for 14 years. So he has to live off whatever he can take from the land, right? Foraging. He has to sleep on the ground. He has to live that kind of really austere lifestyle. And Lakshman is just, he doesn't want that for Sri Ram. So he says, I will fight anyone. This is a very Lakshman type of thing to say. Rama says, listen, Lakshman, I appreciate it, but I'm going and I have to do this. He turns back to Kausalya, to his mother, and she says, I understand that, you really want to go and you want to follow the instructions of your father. Take me with you. I'll come to the forest with you. I will live the kind of lifestyle that you have to live. But I don't want to be apart from you. And at this point, Rama reminds her that actually her dharma and her role as wife to Dashrath, and not only that, but as queen of the kingdom, her responsibility is to stay in Ayodhya and look after everyone. Because if he's unable to do that, then she's the next person, right? She's the second in charge. And so he says to her, as difficult as this is going to be, and he knows how hard it will be, but he says, as difficult as this is going to be, you are going to have to stay. In the Tulsi Ramayana, there is a story about how Dashrath and Kausalya came to be the parents of Ram. And what's said is that in their previous lives, in their previous incarnations, they were this couple who did a lot of austerity and penance and prayed. And as a result of their prayer, they are, born again as Dashrath and Kausalya, and Ram becomes their son. And as they're praying, they have different prayers. They have different asks. So Dashrath, when he gets the chance to ask what he wants for in his previous life, he says, all I want is love for this son who is going to be born for me. I want to just love him. I don't need anything else. And Kausalya says, of course I want to love him, but I don't want to lose my sense of understanding. I don't want to lose my objectivity. I want to maintain my viveka, right? I want to maintain that discerning intellectual faculty when it comes to my relationship with my son. And so when it comes to this devastating episode of him being sent away, we see that Dashrath Maharaj is completely distraught. And even though Kausalya is facing the same type of grief, she is able to bring herself round. She is still devastated, but she's also able to make herself understand what the right thing in that situation is, both for Rama and for herself. And so when he says that to her, she says, I also now recognize that you will not be swayed from, this path that you are now going to go no matter what any of us say. And I also accept that I will have to stay here. And at that point, she gives him her blessings to go. And now they start making preparations. At this point, Sitaji still doesn't know. She hasn't heard the news. Nor has Sumitra, Lakshman's mother. And so how the news is broken to them and their response and their reaction is what we'll see next time. But for now, a question to think about, and this we mentioned in the last episode, how Rama speaks to, one, his mother, and two, Lakshman, in terms of conveying this news to them about him having to leave. How much does the way that we speak about our experiences mold and shape the way that we actually feel that experience? Is it one way around? Is it that our speech dictates our experience, or is it that our experience determines how we speak about things and how we experience them mentally? Something to think about. Hiro, any thoughts on this question?
I think from the perspective of Lord Ram, if he didn't have to convey it to anyone else, that message, then I think the way that he would have said it to himself would have been from the perspective of this is my duty and this is my dharma. And he wouldn't need to be convinced by anything more than that, because that is the way that he lived his truth. But it made me think about what you were saying about the way that people live for pleasure or prosperity or righteousness. And it's almost as if maybe for Lakshman and for his mother, he tailored the message based on what he thought they would be most receptive to. So I think it's almost two-sided. So sometimes we're trying to convince ourselves of something, and often we'll be like, yeah, it'll be a really good opportunity and it'll be fine. And, you kind of go into that overly positive spiral, but whether you believe it or not is kind of a different question. But I think that he had so much conviction that actually he was just kind of tailoring his message. Yeah, I think, but it starts with you, right? Like you need to have that conviction first. Because if you're kind of trying to spiral to convince yourself, then no one else is gonna believe you.
Yeah, it's that thing of you have to, like, if you don't believe in something or if it's not your experience, then when you speak about it, your words don't carry that much weight, right? Like if it's not something that, it's not going to be something that you can convince someone else about if you yourself don't believe in it or aren't convinced.
No, exactly. And I think that comes across also when, Lakshman obviously doesn't agree with the direction given by Lord Ram's father. And I think that, he's saying, let's just fight everyone. And, there is a way that we can change this decision. But I think Lord Ram obviously had the conviction from the outset that he didn't even entertain that idea. And that's a question that I had actually, like, why or how was there such a strong sense of acceptance just from the outset? Because I guess, was it that he felt that the direction was coming from his father and therefore, like, it was such a respect that he had, or a reverence for his father, that he wouldn't ever disagree with him? Or was it that he believed in the actual direction that he was given, regardless of, you know, who it had come from, if it was someone in his life that he thought he would, you know, respect enough to accept that direction from? Basically, why?
Yeah.
Why did he not kind of argue at all?
Yeah. I think it's both together. I think it's the fact that the instruction came from his father. And also that he kind of, you know, in his role as not only a prince, but also as son, is very much kind of trying to demonstrate what the ideal dharma is of a son at that stage of his life. And so he is kind of showing that for him in that situation, when his father has made a promise to someone, then he takes it upon himself as his responsibility to fulfill that promise. Like, he could have very easily said, this has got nothing to do with me, right? Like, you made a promise to KK, and now she's asked you for something that's going to affect me, and like not just, you know, something that affects me for like a few days, but it's going to affect like 14 years of my life. He could have easily been like, this, you know, you sort it out between the two of you. But he takes it upon himself to say that, you know, one, this is something that my father prides himself on, that when he's given his word on something, he never goes back on that. And it's a principle that he's lived his whole life by. And so as his son, it's my responsibility to help him fulfill that in whatever way that I can. And so I'm putting myself second, and I'm making that a priority. So it's not just that he's kind of indiscriminately following instructions from anyone, right? But it's that it's his father who means so much to him, and who he respects so much, and therefore has like committed to, you know, doing his best to fulfill his father's wishes and promise, etc. And that's why he says, I will, you know, follow that instruction and I'll accept it.
And is that where the discernment part comes in, that, you know, his mother had? Because if his dad was like going around stealing and lying, and just because it was his father, I don't think it's something that he would emulate.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's where the discernment comes in, where he realizes what his father's values are, and therefore values that he recognizes as something that he also wants to carry on. And that kind of legacy continues in the ideal, right? But you have to know what the ideal is to start with.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the whole thing that, so there's this one really famous line in the Tulsi Ramayana where he says, you know, this is like the legacy of our whole lineage, because they come from this lineage of kings. And they say, the translation of that line is basically that, you know, we'll give up our life, but we will never break our word. And so knowing that he comes with that legacy, and knowing that he comes from that kind of lineage, he's like even more committed to it, because not only is his personal life's purpose to like live up to dharma, but he knows that it's been that way for, you know, everyone who's come before him as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that kind of, you know, I think we were saying, why has he just accepted it, right? Why has he not kind of reacted in the same way that Lakshman has? It's because he is kind of, that commitment to dharma, basically what it's allowing him to do is to not judge any experience as like personally good or bad for him. Right? Like the measure of whether something is good or bad is not how much does it affect my personal experience. Like the measure is it in line with my duty? And if so, then it's good. And if it's not in line with my duty, then if so, it's bad, right?
It's like the barometer doesn't even consider any part of his kind of self-interest or investment in whatever the action might be.
Yeah.
It's literally about like, does this align with my values as a brother or as a son or as a husband?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think like so often, you know, for us, like if our parents ask us to do something, it's the first reaction that comes to us is like, okay, well, how convenient is this for me, right? Like, does this fit in with what I want to do? And if it doesn't, then it's so hard to convince ourselves to actually do it.
That's relatable. I've been trying to do this thing recently where I think about things in terms of duty and see how far that removes the emotion from it. Because I think often I will make a decision or I will perhaps react to something based on an emotion that comes up. But I know that emotion is temporary. So I'm like, okay, how can I play into the longevity more? And that aligns more with duty, right? Like, so my mum has been like asking me to clear out my childhood bedroom for weeks now. And she's like, you have so much stuff, like get rid of it. And it's obviously not something that I want to do or like spend, you know, a Sunday doing. So I've just been trying to think of it more like, okay, this is actually just my duty as a daughter. It would really help her. Like, how can I remove that, you know, self-interested part? How can I remove that I don't want to? Because that, you know, kind of correlates to an emotion that you feel about something, whether you like or dislike it. So, yeah, I think it's quite a different way almost to approach things, but it's been kind of revolutionary. I would recommend.
It makes a difference, doesn't it? Like it actually, it can change the way that you think and the way that you like perceive the situation.
I think it's hard though, because so I obviously have a lot of respect for my parents and their ideals. And, you know, in the same way that we're saying that Lord Ram really valued certain things in his father, traits that he then wanted to continue. How do we ensure that we can still do that, you know, for people that we might not necessarily agree with or respect? Like, is that still a duty that we carry? Perhaps if we have like a sibling that we don't agree with, I'm not speaking personally, but is that, you know, do we still have to fulfill the duty in relation to someone that we, you know, don't really rate?
Yeah. Well, good to know it's not personal.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's not really like, I don't think doing our dharma to other people means that we have to, like, in every single relationship and every single situation, to be constantly evaluating, you know, what should I say here? What should I do here? Should I be kind of living according to what this person wants or what that person wants? Because that, I mean, you could live that way, right? But then you're kind of constantly evaluating and constantly having to make these decisions. When dharma is our priority, like it is for Ram, then I think that kind of, it filters down then into, like, it automatically filters down into the decisions that we make and, you know, the situations that we come across. And so, you know, like in the bit of the story that we just saw, he intuitively knows how to talk to both his mother and Lakshman about what's happened. But I think to come back to your question, like, is that our responsibility to kind of carry on the values or priorities of people that we don't necessarily agree with? I think if we can see that it's not in line with dharma or even with our dharma, then we don't have to make it a priority or a responsibility.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like Lord Ram obviously has the reverence for his father, but
Yeah.
that's because he believes in, the ideal that his father perpetuates. And I think it's a really interesting point around dharma being the starting point, right? Like, it's almost as if Ram is starting up here, and then therefore everything that follows is informed by his vision. So every year I try and give myself like a bite-size phrase to follow. So this year was less thinking, more doing. I don't really know how well that went. But anyway, next year's is equipoise and equanimity of mind. And I think it's such an interesting one because I think when you have a vision, being able to allow things to kind of wash over you like water is so much more kind of promising. And I think that having a vision is really important because then it's almost like the little things along the way, the failures, the rejections, the setbacks, they don't impact you as much. Obviously, you're still going to feel the sting of it, especially when you're kind of carving out a path for yourself and you believe that that next step, that next job is going to lead me to fulfill my higher purpose, which is helping the world and, peace everywhere or whatever it might be. But I think when you get rejected from those jobs and you're like, oh, that's not really, I'm not getting further to where I thought I would be. I think it's important to maintain that vision. And I think I'd be interested in your perspective on, firstly, like, how do you ensure that you can create a vision that is enduring, especially in such a changing world where we do encounter failures and setbacks and rejections, and then also how to maintain faith in that vision, because it is hard in the face of adversity. So yeah, how do you create one that lasts, and like what does it need to be rooted in for it to last, and then how do you maintain faith in that vision?
I think that we use the word like vision. I think there's two ways that I'm kind of thinking of how you can see this, right? One is you can have a vision for your life, right? Where you're thinking about what is it that you want to make happen? What is it that you want to achieve? How is it that you see your life playing out, right? And so I think the key thing there is like identifying what your purpose is, right? And once we have like a clear vision or a clear understanding of our purpose, then we're able to kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? What do I need to kind of face along the way? What are the challenges? What are the solutions, right? And so we figure out how we want to get to this purpose that we want to achieve and thereby fulfill the vision of our life. But I think the other way of looking at it, and this is actually really relevant for even that first understanding of vision, is that how do I understand the world, right? There's this really interesting discussion in the Bhagavad Gita where it talks about three types of vision, right? And so he says the lowest type of vision, and this vision here means how do you see the world? The lowest type of vision is, and lowest meaning it's just really narrow. It's where you take one thing to be everything, right?
It almost correlates with that pleasure, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where you're ignoring everything else. You're ignoring, potential harm that you're causing to yourself, to other people, for the sake of this one, like, intensely self-centered goal. The middle type of vision is where you acknowledge that, okay, there are many things in the world. There are many things in life, but they're all separate, right? So yes, I want to have career success, but I also need to have like a family, and I want a social life, and I want, financial success, but I also want kind of, like there are so many things. And so when someone has this kind of understanding of life, then they spend their time like flitting from one to the next, right? Like, okay, I need to spend some time on my career. Okay, now I need to spend time on my family. Now I need to spend time on my friends, right? And so you're constantly like, you feel like you're being pulled in all these different directions because you're seeing everything as separate. And he says the highest vision is where you are able to recognize oneness in everything, right? Where you're able to recognize oneness in all people, in all things, in all experiences, like in everything. And there, then that oneness becomes like the thread that strings everything together, right? And therefore, life also doesn't feel so kind of disjointed. And even when, you know, when we talk about the first type of vision and developing like an idea of what I want my life to look like, so often for so many of us, we only think about like a certain aspect of our life. And we think, okay, I'm really clear about this part. And then if you ask someone, well, what do you think about, you know, if you know what you want your family to look like, what do you want your career to look like? Oh, well, that I have no idea. Right?
Yeah.
What kind of like, I don't know, do you want like a service element to your life? Do you want to be doing other stuff in the community? I don't know, because, you know, you get so focused on one thing.
Yeah. It's like all the great visionaries throughout time have all seen oneness, whether we kind of immediately recognize that about them or not. But if you look back, that kind of belief that nobody is free until we're all free, that is in itself just oneness, because you're seeing that interconnectedness between everyone. And I think that's also one of the things that I love about Hinduism, and perhaps has become more poignant as I've gotten older, is that it is a way of life, and it's not just something that I do when I go to my spiritual study classes on a Wednesday evening, or I go to the ashram to reflect in the mandir. Like, it is something that I can carry with me at every point in my day. And I think therefore I feel carried in the same kind of way by it. And I feel so held and protected because it's something that is so integrated. It's so part of me that I'm also a part of it. And I think in that sense, actually the faith that we were talking about earlier is quite seamlessly integrated in, you know, the way that we can approach things, because you almost have this unwavering belief in that oneness and in that, you know, everything is part of this plan. And even if I may not recognize it right now, like, I'm going to try and take, again, like we started in this topic of take the personal out of it and just kind of have that faith that everything will work out. And I think that is part of keeping a broader vision of that oneness.
Yeah. I think that point about faith is really interesting, because you can kind of, when you have faith in something, it generally means that you will kind of, you act according to your faith, right? So for example, say I'm not well. I will go to the doctor and say, okay, these are my symptoms, etc., etc. And say the doctor says, okay, this is what's wrong with you. This is the medicine you have to take, right? I'm only likely to kind of go and fill out that prescription and follow their advice if I have faith in that doctor and, you know, in their knowledge and their ability to diagnose me. But if I do have faith, I will act on the advice. And when I act on the advice, I'll see the result of it, right? So when I take the medicine, I will see that it's making some difference to my life. If I don't have faith, I don't act on it, I've taken away that opportunity from myself, right? To even discover, because maybe I'll take the medicine and actually find it's making me worse. But when we don't have faith, we're kind of, we're not even giving ourselves the opportunity to find out.
Yeah.
And so I think that thing of, having faith in that vision is so important, because either way, like, we need to find out whether it's true or not, right?
Yeah. It's almost as if faith is a self-reinforcing foundation that we can build.
Yeah.
At any point in time, you kind of give it a little bit and it gives you a little bit more, and then it keeps compounding.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have a really strong and stable platform from which to walk.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that, it might make it sound like, okay, well, I can just have faith in anything then, and then it'll just kind of reinforce. But actually, the nature of some things in the world is that you can have faith in them, but you'll be disappointed.
Yeah, of course.
And that's an indication that it's not something to have faith in, right? Like, I shouldn't have faith in something that is going to lead me in a negative direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I think, going back to what we were saying earlier, like, it's so important to know what those values and ideals are that you want to live in, and ensuring that that is something that you want to carry forward and have faith in. I think that discernment in that is really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Knowing what it is that's important to us. And I think that's part of also, like, the way that we live, seeing other people around us, whether it's an actual role model or parents or whoever it is, that being able to see, like, values in action is such a powerful way for us to figure out what's important to us. Like, the fact that whether it's Ram or Lakshman, whoever it is, has, they've lived their whole lives seeing the way that King Dashrath has lived, Kausalya ji has lived. And therefore they have this incredible faith that actually, yes, this is the right path, because I can see the good that's being done. Right?
Yeah. I think it's also, it's easy if you take that approach. Then on the other side, looking at it, you can look at people that run huge companies and work really hard, and, but if they're just informed by that pleasure or that prosperity, like, how much fulfillment are they going to have within themselves? Like, how kind are they going to be? How happy and able to, be giving to, like, their families or whoever it might be around them? You see these really, on the surface, successful people that may not be that happy, but then you see successful people that are really happy, and maybe that's because the values that they're living in are ones that, permeate and carry through in all aspects of their life. So I think it goes back to that oneness and that integration and that vision that you live by, but also the values that you form as your foundation. It's basically all the same thing.
It's basically all the same thing. Yeah.
Everything is connected.
Yeah. And that's what we see, right? Is that he has that vision of dharma, he has the vision of oneness, and therefore he's able to behave in this way that where everything does turn out for the best, even if in the short term it doesn't seem like it. Yeah.
Faith.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And to all our listeners, we'll see you next time in the next episode. Hari Om.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Living Ramayana. To stay updated on Chinmaya Mission UK's activities, visit our website chinmayauk.org and follow us on social media. Subscribe to this podcast and join us for the next episode. Hari Om.